Tonight, the alarming cost of childcare. STV News hears how some women are forced to make the toughest choice imaginable.
So we had to take our feelings and thoughts out of it and say objectively, we can't afford to have this child, and had to make the decision to end the pregnancy.
Also making the headlines, fire safety under the spotlight. People living in this block of flats say they've burning questions about how it was devastated by a blaze.
Standing Up, the course that's hoping to get more women into comedy as the Glasgow International Comedy Festival begins.
And in sport, the Scotland players say nobody's place in the squad is safe in the countdown to the Euros. I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6.
Good evening. I fell pregnant again. I knew I couldn't afford childcare. I had to end my pregnancy. The heartbreaking story of a woman who's told STV News she is one of the 40% of women having abortions because they cannot afford the childcare costs that come with another child. It comes as new research has laid bare the rising and challenging costs of parenthood across the country.
In a survey by the group Pregnant Then Screwed, 84% of parents say their childcare costs the same or more than their income, meaning some are effectively paying to go to work. As a result, 71% of mothers and 50% of fathers say it doesn't make financial sense for them to work. And more than 40% of parents say that they've had to rely on some form of debt or withdraw money from their savings to pay for childcare. Ollie Dickinson has more.
When Hannah fell pregnant for a second time, the cost of being a parent had already hit hard. Struggling with the expense of one child's care, a second felt impossible. We've protected her identity as she tells her story.
Me and my partner have a little girl who's almost 2. When I had to go back to work, I knew it was going to have to be a private nursery because of the hours we both work. The cheapest was £900 a month for 3 days a week. But then when I fell pregnant again, I had to think about the fact I was going to be working just to cover childcare costs. And you want to give your kids the best life you can and spend time with them. And so we had to take our feelings and thoughts out of it and say objectively, we can't afford to have this child. We had to make the choice. It was not something we can do, and had to make the decision to end the pregnancy.
It was a life-changing decision for Hannah. For others, childcare costs have played a major part in their choice to move abroad. Lauren and her family emigrated to Sweden when her son was 2. She says friends back in Scotland are shocked at what she receives in her new home.
Children in Sweden go to a daycare that's called Förskola. So we pay £100 a month for our 6-year-old to go to Förskola Monday to Friday, 9 o'clock till 4 o'clock. That includes 2 meals, and he gets fruit and milk. My friends in Scotland, they're paying over £1,000 for the same care that's not always as good a quality as what I pay £100 for.
The organisation behind today's figures say that families are often left facing these choices due to a lack of consistency in the delivery of childcare across the country.
The funded hours that are in place just now for parents and children in Scotland when they turn 3 and 4, there are a lot of issues with councils delivering it in different ways. So I think we have to have really frank, really honest conversations here about how we take childcare forward in Scotland and how we make it far more affordable for families.
The minister responsible for childcare policy, Natalie Dawn, was unavailable for an on-camera interview with STV News. A Scottish Government spokesperson said a woman's right to choose is a deeply personal issue and explained that they recognise that supporting families through high-quality, affordable and accessible childcare is critical to our national mission to tackle child poverty. But as Hannah's case shows, some are still having to make challenging decisions when they feel that support is not enough. Ollie Dickinson, STV News.
People living in a block of flats in Edinburgh where several homes were destroyed in a huge fire have told STV News they have numerous questions about the safety of the building.
100 residents were safely evacuated after the outbreak in the Bonington area a week ago. Most are still out of their properties and some say they don't want to ever go back. Here's our senior reporter, Gordon Cree.
Now the cordon's been moved back, we can properly see the extent of the damage to the Breadalbin Street flats. A blaze described by one firefighter as the hottest he's been at in 30 years service has left homes reduced to a blackened, twisted shell. Cameron works at an office in the same complex and had been renting a flat adjoining those where the seat of the fire was.
Watching it go in flames and knowing that that's where you live is quite a scary prospect, and you know, our hearts go out to the people who are worst affected. I mean, it's terrible, and you kind of just wish them all the best moving forward. But yeah, it's a scary prospect, and as I mentioned, I don't know if I would want to live here again.
The way the flames spread in the early hours of last Thursday was hugely concerning for residents. There were already overnight patrols here because of wooden cladding and plans to replace it. We've been told a series of discussions had taken place down the years about the safety of the building. Problems being highlighted include concerns over fire compartmentalisation, suggestions of insufficient alarms, inadequate fire seals round doors, the state of fire breaks and service voids, and claims the nighttime patrol didn't follow expected procedures. The building's factor Lowther told us these are issues for the developer Persimmon, while it said resident safety remains our priority and interim measures are in place to improve building safety until remedial works are completed. Well, for the residents here, there are contrasting tales. Those who live on this side of the building have been able to get back into their flats. But for people who live in the middle and in the block where the fire happened and the one on the other side of it, they are still out. And looking at the damage, for those in the ones worst affected, they're not going to be back in anytime soon. Bev lived in one of the worst affected flats right above where the fire started. She spent the last week in a hotel and will shortly move in with friends.
Well, we're never going to be moving back in there. Yeah, I couldn't. I'd be too scared. I mean, the fire alarm went off here the other morning and I properly freaked out. And I'm not a freak out kind of person.
Bev says the traumatic event has been made easier by what she's seen since. Among that, hotel staff looking after her and a supermarket giving her free replacement clothes.
We're alive, that's the main thing. And it'll all come good. But I say it was the kindness of every single person.
The fire service say the investigation into the full circumstances here goes on. Gordon Cree, STV News, Edinburgh.
In the last hour, Rishi Sunak has addressed Conservative MPs with speculation growing about a possible leadership challenge ahead of a general election later this year.
The Prime Minister was speaking at a meeting of the influential 1922 committee of backbench Tories. A Westminster correspondent, Paris Goutsianis, was there. So, Paris, what was his message?
Well, John, after a turbulent few days, the message to Tory MPs was to come together. And the Prime Minister will have been pleased with the ovation he received on entering the 1922 committee. As is traditional, the MPs were banging their desks to show the support, although some might say the louder the noise, the more trouble you're in. But after all the mutterings and whisperings over the past few days about the Prime Minister's future, I think Number 10 will be pleased with the way a crucial day today has gone. It started with inflation figures showing that the cost of living crisis is easing. The Prime Minister referenced those at PMQs, where he said that his economic plan is working. And there was only one gag at his expense from Sir Keir Starmer about Tory MPs coming for his job. One thing that hasn't gone Rishi Sunak's way is votes that are ongoing right now in the House of Lords on the Rwanda plan to deport asylum seekers who cross the English Channel. What does that mean? It means the legislation is unlikely to pass before Easter, which means planes won't get off the ground before the end of spring, as the Prime Minister has promised. So the bottom line here is that the moment of maximum danger for Rishi Sunak is going to be English local elections in May, where the Tories are expected to take a big defeat. That's when we could see the party come together to potentially push the Prime Minister out.
Paris at Westminster, thank you. There are fears Scotland is unprepared to track the spread of new super-strength drugs linked to at least 25 deaths in recent months. 15 synthetic opioids, including substances called nitazines, have now been banned by the UK government.
Anyone involved in production or supply of these Class A drugs could face life in prison, an unlimited fine, or both. But some experts warn such a ban is fruitless. Here's our chief reporter, Sharon Frew.
Thomas and John first came for help to this recovery cafe. Now they work here. Groups like this do receive police alerts warning about certain drugs. But both men believe more information is needed about the emerging threats of substances known as nitazines. Are we prepared?
No for us, no.
I don't think so really for nitazines, no.
If something comes into an area, we need to know about that right away. These new drugs, people haven't got a clue what's in them, and that's really dangerous. That's when overdoses are going to happen.
It could be in cocaine, it can be in heroin, it can be in benzos, and people are just taking what they would normally take without realising.
Stronger than heroin, these are the 15 synthetic opioids, including 14 nitazines, that have now been added to the list of Class A substances controlled under the Misuse of Drugs Act.
Anyone involved in supplying or importing these drugs will face an extremely long prison sentence. Besides making these drugs illegal, we're also stepping up our early warning and surveillance systems at the border, internally, wastewater analysis, toxicology reports, post-mortem reports as well.
The number of suspected drug deaths in Scotland surged by 10% last year, according to Police Scotland figures. More than 25 fatal overdoses have been linked to nitazines.
Well, experience tells us that banning substances has minimal impact on their use and their harms because the drug market is so varied and the supplier to that market can pivot quite quickly to other substances. So we really need other responses to this synthetic opioid issue we're facing at the moment.
This new forensic lab opened in Glasgow to examine drugs seized by police. The Scottish Government say its plans to introduce more drug checking services have faced a number of unanticipated challenges and delays.
We have the technology to provide quite high-level drug checking services. The first drug checking service in the country opened in Bristol recently, so we've seen that it can work. We've got people who have the expertise, and there is support for it. We just need to get the political will behind it.
We can provide things like test strips so that people can do a basic check on their substances, and we should really start by doing that because we can connect with people around risk management. But without it, they just don't know what they're using. The fact of the matter is, though, that everything that we're saying that we should be doing for an emergence of synthetic opioids is everything that we should already be doing for our current public health emergency in relation to drug deaths.
Drug checking facilities require a Home Office licence. The Scottish Government say it expects applications to be made imminently. Sharon Frew, STV News.
The Scottish Government is being accused of betraying future generations as analysts warn they're nowhere near on track to meet climate targets. A damning report by independent advisers says the Government is failing.
Campaigners are calling for urgent action, but the Energy Secretary says they are still committed to net zero by 2045. Laura Piper reports.
A green workforce in training. These students are learning how to build eco-friendly homes. But with today's report delivering a hammer blow to the Scottish Government's climate goals, they're feeling frustrated.
We could have a future if we'd done more, but it's just by the way, to hit net zero, a lot more need to be put in.
Scotland has some of the most ambitious climate targets in the world, including cutting harmful emissions by 75% by 2030. But now the government's own independent advisers say that is no longer credible.
Emissions in Scotland have not been coming down fast enough, especially not fast enough to reach the legislated 2030 target. And we make 14 key recommendations in respect of progress, and sorry to say that only 3 of them represent good progress, and there's a couple of that where there's really no progress at all.
Failing areas include heat pump installations, peatland restoration and recycling rates, where there's been no progress at all over the past 10 years. For those already working from the ground up to cut emissions, it's disappointing.
It doesn't feel like it's particularly joined up. Not very surprising. I think there's a lot more to be done, a lot more that can be done.
This is a damning report for the Scottish Government. Scotland has missed out on 8 of the past 12 annual targets to cut greenhouse gas emissions. Today, environmental groups called it a betrayal of future generations. Yet these young cyclists remain hopeful.
I think they could maybe do some more things about, I don't know, plastic and stuff, but that will take quite a long time.
I think it's quite good that they're getting a lot of people to cycle. We need to do more if we want to make more serious impact. So we need to move a bit quicker and make it a bigger focus.
The governments say they are still utterly committed to tackling climate change.
Scotland's targets were always exceptionally stretching. I think that was a good thing. I think that has meant that we have gotten further than we might otherwise have been. We are now nearly halfway to net zero. We continue to decarbonise faster than the UK as a whole. And I am really proud of the actions that we have taken in pursuit of that. But no government will ever be able to say they're doing enough, and I'll keep pushing for more.
But today's report is still a firm warning. Ambitious targets are only worthwhile if there's actually a chance of meeting them. Laura Piper, STV News.
Other stories in the West, and around 150 jobs are set to go as Glasgow makes cuts to its health and social care services. The City Council's partnership between the Council and NHS says it's cutting services to balance its books. A cyclist hit by a lorry in Bearsden has died. Police say the 56-year-old woman lost her life in the incident during yesterday morning's rush hour. Nearly 100 jobs have been lost at a manufacturing firm in South Lanarkshire. Valve Components in East Kilbride is part of the Glenalmond Group. A course aiming to get more women into comedy holds its final show as part of the Glasgow International Comedy Festival tomorrow. They'll be getting a masterclass from one of the event's headline acts. Brandon Cook reports.
I sound like this because my father is an actor from the south of England and my mum's a mad ride from Maryhill.
Nice.
Final rehearsals ahead of their big debut. Aoifre and Sophie are both budding comedians about to take to the big stage.
It's been an incredible experience, the teaching, being in a room full of other women all making each other laugh. There's just nothing quite like it. It's just such a special feeling.
I'd always wanted to try it, but I had absolutely no idea how to get an avenue into it. So I saw the course come up when I was looking at things I was going to go and see at the Comedy Festival anyway, and I thought, this is amazing serendipity, this is the right moment.
They're part of a course aiming to get more women into comedy, and organisers say the demand has been clear to see.
The applications for the course was like 300% oversubscribed, and so that was really heartening because it meant we were on the right track with what we're trying to deliver. We're definitely lucky to be able to deliver it. Everyone's having a really amazing time, but you know, it's Glasgow. As far as we're concerned, it's the funniest city in the world. Oh, buddy.
For some, this is a one-off appearance, but many others have gone on to huge success after being part of this type of group.
The south of England, my mother, same inflection, same rhythm, and you go, some mad Morphy, Maryhill, bang, bang, bang.
And Susie McCabe was only too happy to pass on her knowledge.
Was a mad Morphy, Maryhill. That's it, that's it, that's it. So see the inflection. I think the thought of just going onto a stage and getting a spot in a comedy club is quite daunting for most people. I didn't even have any intention of doing that. But the fact that you can do a course and it shows you how to write and how to structure and how you build up a joke, and then you can do a gig and it's to friends and family of everyone who's on that course. It kind of takes the fear out of it, but then gives you the confidence to go on and actually do gigs to paying members of the public.
The performers will step into the spotlight for real when the show gets underway on Thursday night. Brandon Cook, STV News, Glasgow.
OK, time for sport now with Jamie.
Thanks very much, Kellyanne. Good evening. Scotland defender Ryan Porteous says nobody's place is safe ahead of this summer's Euros. The Scots are heading into a friendly double-header against the Netherlands and Northern Ireland, with players vying for places in Steve Clarke's squad. Here's Stephanie Daly.
They may be friendlies by name, but for the Scotland players, they're so much more. With 23 places available in Steve Clarke's Euro 2024 squad, Friday night's trip to the Netherlands and Tuesday's visit of Northern Ireland to Hampden are huge opportunities for the Scots to impress. Clarke has tough decisions to make in the coming months. No player wants to be left behind.
I think the closer it gets to the Euros, obviously everyone is right at it. But to be fair, listen, that's the kind of standard that everyone's set for the last 3-4 years within the group. And with the group getting bigger, the kind of appetite for places is going to increase. Nobody's place is safe, so to speak. You need to keep showing it in games and training, and especially for your club as well. So keep working hard.
And the management team are ruling nothing out as they work to finalise their squad.
I remember when we were together in November and we talked about Lawrence Shankland, and he came in and he got his goal, and he was consistently scoring goals in the league, but he came with us and he actually came on and scored the equalising goal in Georgia. Now for me, there might be another Lawrence Shankland coming from nowhere.
With places on the plane to Germany still up for grabs, it remains to be seen who'll claim them. Stephanie Daly, STV News.
Former Rangers captain Lee McCulloch says the togetherness at the club under Philippe Clement will be vital in the Premiership title race. Speaking as it was announced, Rangers will take on Man United in a pre-season friendly at Murrayfield this summer. Former Old Trafford star Wes Brown also backed goalkeeper Jack Butland for a return to the England squad.
I think he's brought a togetherness to the squad. He's brought the fans are engaging ever more so. Game by game, they're engaging more and they're showing the passion even more. So I think he's given a squad a togetherness and a confidence, and I think that's shown.
Being number one's probably the most important thing. You have to play, show what you're about, and then once you get that confidence and consistency, that's when people start looking again. But if he keeps that going, I'm sure he'll be able to make his way back into the squad.
Partick Thistle women's team are getting set for their first ever cup final. Midfielder Rachel Donaldson says it can be hard juggling her career as a teacher with playing for the part-time team. Thistle face Rangers in the League Cup on Sunday, hoping to pull off an upset and lift the trophy. Here's Ronnie Charters.
Swap out the person in the sickle.
Not the conventional way of preparing for a League Cup final. Partick Thistle's Rachel Donaldson has to juggle being in a dressing room and a classroom, working as a PE teacher at Denny High School. Having such an active day job even before heading onto the pitch, the midfielder admits managing her hectic schedule can be challenging.
Monday to Friday, day job, I'll be here teaching the kids, marking, getting things set up, and then I'll rush, get my dinner and go straight to training on a Tuesday, Wednesday and a Thursday, game on a Sunday, and then straight back in on the Monday morning. There are some really, really difficult times. You're after parents' evening, travelling straight to games, or you're trying to get classes covered for your midweek fixtures, etc. So definitely a lot of challenges, but I do love my job and I like balancing it with the football as well. 30 seconds to talk through different tactics.
Donaldson admits Sunday's game against Rangers in the final has been the talk of the school, even though not all of her pupils will be cheering her on.
Quite a few of the kids in school have already got their tickets, so that's quite exciting. Hopefully they'll be supporting me, but I definitely think there's a few Rangers fans within the school. They keep up to date with all the scores, so they let me know if they've not been too impressed with my performance at the weekend.
So Rachel, just finally then, what would it mean to lift the League Cup with Partick Thistle?
It would mean the absolute world. We haven't yet taken 3 points previously off a top 16, to go do it in a cup final would just be an absolute dream come true. And the girls, we're not getting too far ahead of ourselves, but the closer it gets, the closer you start to think maybe it's possible, and we're all really, really excited for it.
Go on, Rosie, attack! Slow the ball down, Rosie! The team is managed by Brian Graham, who's a striker for the Partick Thistle men's side. And as they prepare for their first ever cup final, Graham has one simple message for his players.
Go and be heroes, go and put your name in the history books, go and inspire the next generation of young girls trying to come up and play the game. And it doesn't matter what level, try and reach the top and go and inspire the next generation. That's the big one for me, and be a hero, go and make history.
Rachel and her teammates are hoping the cup will come back to Maryhill come Sunday evening. Ronnie Charters, STV News.
Olympic champion Duncan Scott says he questioned his chances of making the Paris Games during struggles in the pool last year. The 6-time Olympic medalist now believes he's recaptured his best form ahead of the Team GB trials in London.
I wasn't swimming great at all. I had a lot of bouts of illness in and out of the pool. Consistency was not there at all, and yeah, it meant that I started competing and I was really struggling. And then you start to question things. Am I doing the right thing? Am I going to make the Olympic team next year? Different things like that. And we're a year later. A year down the line and I'm in a completely different shape, swimming better than I ever have done.
And it's been announced that the Premiership match between Dundee and Rangers will be played on April the 10th. That's all tonight's sport.
Jamie, thank you. Now here is Sean with the weather.
An icy start to the day will give way to a series of oohs and ahs. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
A very good evening to you. Well, it's been a bit of an east-west split today. In the west, we've had the best of the sunshine, spring sunshine today, first official day of spring, 10, 11 degrees Celsius, best of it across Argyll and Bute. The Highlands, bit of a slow start, central and southern parts, but that cloud has been clearing away. We joined in some of that sunshine. Overnight tonight, we start to see cloud and rain arriving from the west, second and third day of spring. Not looking quite so kind to us. There's going to be plenty of rain, strong, blustery winds, but tomorrow it will be very mild. So very wet, but also very mild. Heaviest of the rain in the southwest, also the northwest. I expect probably later on in the afternoon we'll start to see some sunshine developing across the Inner Hebrides. That comes into northern parts of Stirlingshire, most of Argyll and Bute by the end of the afternoon. So brighter skies coming in later on the day. But that rainfall really clocking up in quite a few spots, especially probably the hills just around Straven and also Darvel northwards. So higher ground here seeing quite a lot of rain. Kilpatrick's, the Campsies and also particularly across the western end of the Grampians. We could see about an inch or two of rain falling through tomorrow. But as said, slowly improving later on the day. Temperatures 10 or 11 degrees Celsius. A blustery day for all parts, but especially windy with gusts maybe about 40 or 50 miles per hour. Coll, Tyree, Mull and also around the Small Isles. Still staying blustery on Thursday. Lots of showers around. But as the wind swings round to more of a northerly Saturday and Sunday, the showers start to ease, but turning chillier, especially by night. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
And that's all from us, but Rona will be here with Scotland Tonight at 10:40.
From all of us here, thank you for watching. Have a good night.
Good night.